You're watching Young Adult Matters, and today we are talking about cohabitation, living together in a sexual relationship without marriage. And we have our guest host today, Ms. Lydia Pesina, and you mentioned a very interesting point that there are reasons why young adults stray away from the idea of marriage and don't want to commit to a sacramental marriage. You want to share with us some of those reasons?
All three of us have been discussing, we look at some of the bigger reasons, like, for example, as we say, the secularization and individualization of our culture, that people often get to think of, well, what's best for me at this point in time. Where hopefully if we look at the broader sense of what marriage means, it's so much broader than that. It's looking at how do I enter into a committed relationship, that's going to be for a lifelong. But as I know I heard a philosopher say that the culture is like the water the fish swims in. It doesn't notice it. And I think if we look at culture, especially for somebody my age, where I can look back at when we married 38 years ago, and how the overall culture was very different than it is today. And I think that the era we live in today, this is what we see.
Going along with that, I think a lot of it is what's around us and what we see. Like, it's okay to have sex early, it's okay to just not understand what the sacrament of sex is. We no longer respect that marriage is a sacrament. We no longer respect each other in a sense of, I know one of the biggest questions that they ask is like, well, how far is too far? Like, how far can I go with my girlfriend without it being a sin? And then at that point, we're trying to figure out, well, where do I cross the line? And the same thing, I think it kind of balances out here, and like, what can I do that's okay without me actually crossing the line? And so we have to ask those questions. I feel that is it really Christ-centered? I think that we're being very, very selfish because, like, well, what can I do to get away with it? Instead of, like, respecting the person and be like, you know what? If I really love this person, I really respect this person, I'll wait in whatever this person needs me to wait for. Because that's... Go.
No, well, it goes with what you were saying about the individualism and the instant gratification, where in a cohabitating couple is, I'm free to disconnect. I could just, there was never a ring, there was never a sacrament present to hold me to this. Yeah. So if you're not making me happy, I can just say, you know what, I'm done with you, and the commitment is there. So one of the reasons that I think also is the fear of commitment. Mm-hmm. Because in this culture of individualism and the instant gratification is commitment goes against it.
What's in it for me?
Well, yeah. Well, because see, once you're committed, then you're in it. No matter what, whether if there's a disagreement or something, you're committed. You're in it for the long haul. And so with the cohabitating, it gives you that false freedom that you can just step away when you want. And we're a victim of our society, like you said, like the analogy with the fish, that they're not aware of the environment. Mm-hmm. Is what do we see in the media? We're seeing these new shows that are coming up that the basis of the show is that the family is separated, or that the family is male and male. That going through trials of like
the new normal.
Yeah, the new normal. That they're going to.
And I think that the majority of us are people of goodwill. And we live in a certain place at a certain time. And I think couples live together for many, many reasons. Sometimes it's for economic reasons, or sometimes because they left home and they don't really have a place, or they're going to school and they find that it's more practical. And I think sometimes people even move in, kind of transition into that. If they were having a sexual relationship, they stay one night, and before they know it, they've stayed a second night, and then it's just there. I heard a couple say that to me recently. But I think, we're at a time where we help each other to look at life a little bit more reflectively, to say, what are the reasons for two people living together? And what is the goal, so to speak? Now, I think the good news in a high-risk group of people in a cohabitation situation is that many couples are coming to the church to marry. And I think that's really good news, because I think they've come to a cohabitating situation for many, many reasons. Some of the ones that we've named before, just not thinking about it because they were boyfriend and girlfriend. It was almost like the next step, because that's what's kind of in the social milieu. But I think when they come to a point where they say, You know, we do want to be married. We do believe in marriage. And I think that's the good news of the percentage that we talked about earlier, you know, the percentage that have, lived together in today's world, which is from 60 to 80% that are living together in this country, very different from 1978 where it was like 11%, you know.
Run that by me again. That statistic is staggering.
In 19 says that from 65 to 74, I think it was like 11% of the population was living together. In today's world, it's 60 to 80%. So that's a huge difference within a lifetime. For us, it's a lifetime. My husband and I got married in 1974, so, you know, that's like our married lifetime, 38 years. And so it is a very different milieu. I think for us, it's incumbent to look at what are the reasons that couples are living together. What does it mean to them? And do they recognize that it's not the same as being married, but many are coming to get married. And I think that's probably the good news of, you know, even up from a very high risk factor, because all of research, sociological research, etc., shows that couples who do live together before marriage have a much higher incidence of divorce. And, you know, even health-wise, as far as how the relationship is, I think you mentioned earlier, you know, some, you know, couples live together and then they say, but I don't want to leave because if I leave, then we're broken up. Whereas if they had an opportunity,
like a condition that if you want to be with me, you're going to live with me.
And I think more than anything, and in this world, we're called to help each other get to a healthier and holier place. And as we say in the PIC program, you know, how do you learn to pace a relationship? That you know somebody really well before you trust them, trust before rely, rely before commit, and commitment before intimacy. And that if we take our time, but again, going back to the fish, you know, analogy, we live in a time in a culture where everything is very fast. So how do we look at what are the reasons that couples marry? Often it's you know, not thought through thoroughly, because we do live in a very fast-paced world. And other times it's because people just find themselves in a situation of economic reasons or whatever, and they think this is going to be the best thing.
And guys, what have you heard from your friends? What do you see out there that are some of the reasons why people are cohabitating?
Well, I think one of the things that I've heard is that, well, what's the point? You know, if I can live with them, I can share my life with them, then what's the point? Why do I want to get just a piece of paper? Or why do I want to just a ring? What, for a ring? I can go to the ring and buy a ring for myself. But that's where the problem happens. That's where the disconnect is, that it's beyond the ring. It's beyond the piece of paper, because it's a sacrament. And one of the reasons, just in conversations, of course, they don't know that that's one of the reasons, but is that we've lost sight as a society that marriage is a sacrament. And it was instituted by God for us. And we know that sacraments are a tangible, visible sign of God's love for us, that were placed for us to come into a deeper connection with God and to have God and Christ to be the center of this relationship. And understanding that, you know, it is a sacrament. It's more important than that. I think that's one of the biggest, I guess, common factors that I've seen. That, well, what's the point? It's just a piece of paper. It's not. It's not a piece of paper.
Absolutely. And it's a very special grace that you will receive through this sacramental union. You mentioned the coming to the church, and that really struck me. If there are couples out there that would like to make good with God, there's an opportunity. Visit your parish, talk to your priest, and take that step to unite in Christ and make your union Christ-centered and a sacramental union. We will be back on a very interesting topic right after the break. Stay with us.